I'm going to put on my mechanic's hat today and do a roadside repair on my Harley as the shifter is broken yet again, and I don't feel like spending a couple $100 and buying two stupid parts that are only going to break in another couple of years. So let's fix it. This is not so much an electronic repair, but a mechanical repair. Anyone who drives a Harley knows what I'm going to show you. This is a problem that happens all the time, and this has happened before. The shifter, you see here? This is the shifter. You've got your downshift and your upshift. The shaft strips, as you can see, and then you can't change gears. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take this apart. The shaft is going to be stripped, which always happens. It's been replaced. This shaft was replaced, as was this one, because that one went once. This one's gone. Now it's this one's turn. I think this one was already done once too. This has happened 2 or 3 times. We got to pull this apart, clean it up, put some JB weld on it, and put it back together and bolt it back on. And the JB weld will set up, and it'll be good for another couple of years. So let's get started and show you how to do this. Pretty simple, just taking out a bolt. But getting it off now that it's got JB weld on might be more of a challenge. But let's see what we can do here. It should come off fairly easily. So the tools needed to do this: 1/4 inch Allen key and a screwdriver to pry it off. And that's really all I'm going to need for tools. It's kind of awkward to get into here to get the wrench in because of where it's located, but it will fit in there, and then we can back it off. This could be the hard part because the JB weld that was put on this before is probably binding the screws. This is going to be more difficult than I imagined, because I've been working at this for a while now to try and get this this bolt loose as it's seized up. Good thing the shaft is stripped, so I was able to lift the shifter up a bit so that I could get in here. At least now I've gotten the bolt where it's workable. But I got to take the bolt out completely. Once I get the bolt out, I should be able to pull the shaft off just using my screwdriver to pry it off. And then we'll apply some more glue and let it set up, and that should give me another few years of use before I have to deal with this again. As I say, it's been quite a few years since I've done it, but this is about the 3rd time in 15 years. The first time was new parts. I thought if I have to keep buying new parts every time this breaks, this is going to get kind of expensive, because these parts are not cheap. They're metal, but you know, they're not cheap. Anytime you have anything to do with Harley Davidson parts, it costs you a small fortune. Or if I can get in here from the bottom and turn this now, if it's loose enough that I can turn this. There we go. Alright, now the bolt is out. I should be able to pry this piece off with my broken flat blade screwdriver, slotted screwdriver. Should be able to pry this off. can see the old JB weld that was in there from before. It's been good for all these years, but it just finally let go. There. Now I can fix this up. Anyway, time to mix up some JB weld, and we'll put this back together and got it set up. So see, that's where the bolt goes down, so you got to pull that bolt out, otherwise you'll never get this off. Anyway, I'm gonna go mix up some JB weld and we'll get this glued up. So first we're gonna clean off the remnants of the old adhesive that's still on here, and I've already done the same for the inside threads on the shifter. We're going to clean this off so that we can get some new metal to adhere to. Air conditioning, quite loud. Alright, now I've got that relatively clean, we're going to mix up some new JB weld. I'm just using the quick two-part epoxy JB weld. We'll mix some of that up. I'm going to put some on the back side here and on the front side, and then put the piece back on. I'm going to avoid this area, of course, here, because I don't really want to get it onto the threads, because it just makes removing it that much harder down the road when it has to be done. And then inevitably this will need to be done again, because it's been done so many times now I've lost count. This is, I think, the third or fourth time I've had to do this. This is one weakness on this bike anyway. And I know some jackass is going to say, well, just don't stamp on it so hard with your foot. Well, I don't. That's what I thought the first time. I'm very careful when I change gears. I don't hit it hard. But it's happened again. That's what I thought the first time when it broke the first time, was that maybe I'm shifting too hard when I'm downshifting. But I've been very careful ever since then, and it still does it. So it's obviously not the way I'm shifting, it's just the part itself. The little splines here are not deep enough, and they flatten out on this side. This is a softer metal. They flatten out. Well, I think both sides flatten out eventually, but anyway, beside the point. This is how you get these things working quickly, like a Roadside Repair, when you don't have the part, or you're like me, you just don't want to buy the part because the part's expensive, because you got to change the shaft as well, right? So by the time you buy the shaft and the shifter, lever, you know, you're several $100s in parts, because nothing is cheap for a Harley. Anybody that owns one knows that. Any of the parts you buy, they're expensive. I'm avoiding the front half because this is where the screw goes through, right, where the bolt is going to go through, so I don't really want to get any in there if possible. Now we take the shifter and we'll stick the whips. Yeah, this is the way it goes on. Take the shifter and we put it on where we want it to end up being. And I will put some more epoxy on this side here just to secure it a little better if I can. Get some in around here. And of course I want to squish it between the two of them because that helps bond it to the other shaft. And then I'll put the bolt back in. Tighten it up and then let it set up. Let it set for a while before I operate it. Inevitably some will get on the threads, which will make removing this much more difficult again when it has to be done at some future date, which I'm sure it will, because they always have to be done again, but we'll try to make it last a while. It's been probably 3 or 4 years since I've done this before, so it should be good for a little while. Key is to try and get this bolt in as tight as you can, to put as much pressure on to squeeze it as tight as it can be squeezed. And of course now we're racing against the clock because I gotta get this tight before the glue sets up. Should be on tight. Now that, once this glue sets up, that should hold that in place. So now we'll just let it sit and dry before I try to take it out. That's how you do a roadside repair on a shifter on a Harley.